Morning, people. I just had a debate on BBC Radio 2 with Jeremy Vine and Suzanne Evans, the former deputy chair of UKIP. And the topic of the debate was Suella Braverman, who's gone off the rails again, accusing the Metropolitan Police of left-wing bias because they're refusing to ban the March for Palestine this Saturday. And it just got weird.
Go first, Femi. Are the police biased towards the left?
I think you'd probably be best asking Patsy Stevenson, who was at the vigil for Sarah Everard after one of the Metropolitan Police officers murdered her, and she was thrown to the ground, faced into the ground, and during that vigil by the Metropolitan Police. I don't think she would have thought that they were particularly lenient towards her. Also, we're talking about a Metropolitan Police force that was recently found officially by the Independent Report to be institutionally racist, sexist, and homophobic. The idea that they have a left-wing bias is simply laughable.
What do you think, Suzanne?
So I think Suella isn't wrong at all, really. I mean, just yesterday, for instance, Just Stop Oil protesters were blocking Waterloo Bridge. The Metropolitan Police put out a tweet which seemed to suggest that although they'd arrested them, they were still letting them carry on demonstrate. I can't think of any other situation where someone who had been arrested would be allowed to continue what they were doing at the scene of the crime.
Well, there we go, Femi.
Just Stop Oil protesters get carried away all the time. I can give you further examples. At the coronation, they confiscated "Not My King" signs. They arrested the leaders of the Republican movement for 14 hours, as well as women's safety volunteers, people there to decide to protect women's safety, especially from a Metropolitan Police officer, which has not got a great track record of protecting women's safety. Again, to imply that they are on the left side of this is simply laughable.
Let's take Saturday, Femi. So this big protest, this Armistice Day protest in support of Palestinians and Palestine. The Suella Braverman thought seems to be that they'll let that go, but as soon as the outright lot turn up, the right-wing protesters, the sort of football hooligan element, then they crack down on them.
Well, I mean, I went to the protest last week and I was interviewing everybody. There were Jewish people there, there were Muslim people there were people of Palestinian origin there. I met one woman who was actually stuck in the UK because she couldn't get a flight back to the West Bank because of the restrictions, and one of her cousins was recently shot. People are desperately in grief right now. And meanwhile, when I was walking past Downing Street, there was a group of far-right protesters there, and as soon as they caught me filming them, they recognized me. They shouted, "Femi, you're a disgrace to this country. Can we all get a boo for Femi?" And the police were standing there just right next to them, just letting them carry on with it. The idea that the police have a bias against the right, again, it's just not borne out by the evidence.
I think it was interesting, wasn't it, that for 4 weeks now, we've had these appalling, I agree with Suella, I think they are pro-Hamas hate marches. We've seen anti-Semitism, we've seen hatred for Israel, for Britain, for the West. They've involved violence, intimidation, open calls for jihad on the streets, and the police haven't done anything. Now, I think, if you've got people chanting with pro-paraglider stickers on their back and yet they aren't arrested, you've really got to wonder what the police are doing.
It's the extent to which these people are willing to go on national broadcast and tell lies that can be exposed through 10 seconds on Google. They have been arresting people who've glorified violence. Not everybody who commits a crime gets arrested the second they commit that crime.
And there's a lot of me that realises I think this is a bit of a Westminster bubble outrage story about Suella. People are saying, she wants to get sacked, she ought to go. Most people, I think, in the country would agree with her. I think if you move, it's one of those typical things. If you move outside London and away from the Westminster bubble, most people out in the rest of the country can't understand what all the fuss is about.
Femi, do you think most people would say Suella is right?
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think so at all. Especially
Femi's right in that bubble.
I'm the one speaking from Birmingham right now. I don't know where you are. I'm currently in Birmingham. I'm not in the Westminster bubble. That would be more likely to be you. As for what you said about the marches, there are 300,000 people at those marches, and I've been at two of those marches. I interviewed Jewish people. I interviewed Israeli people from the Israeli movement against house demolitions in the West Bank. People who have no interest in any sort of violence against Israel, people who are just calling for peace. That is the vast majority of people there.
Hang on, you misjudge that because you thought that the country would vote Remain and it voted Brexit, and you thought they were wrong, and you said that again and again. Here, you think they're all going to be up against Suella. Actually, there may be a groundswell that says she's bang on.
That's an interesting parallel. As for that,
so you may have misjudged the mood outside London.
Sorry, what? Like what he just said may have been framed as like a pro-Brexit jab, but what it actually means is You didn't think the British people wanted Brexit, and you were wrong, so maybe we do want genocide. If you're gonna bring in Brexit to score points on an issue this sensitive, at least don't score an own goal. Anyway, carry on.
No,
Even though you're in Birmingham.
I was campaigning in Birmingham prior to the referendum, and I actually believed that we were going to vote out. I was terrified. As for this specific case, majority of people are in support of peace in Palestine, because we're currently witnessing ethnic cleansing and near genocide as stated by the United Nations, and this is being supported by our government. As for the situation, the majority of people at those marches are calling for peace. Yes, there may be people there who are calling for violence, and the police should deal with them. But right now, and this is what really makes me just like, what is happening? We're talking about 300,000 people calling for peace, and I'm debating whether those marches should go ahead because a few people might show up who are more extreme. And I'm debating this against the former deputy head of UKIP. Am I high right now?
Now that might seem like a cheap shot, but her whole argument is based on the idea that if there are a minority of extremists in a big group, then the entire group is tarnished by the few. But with UKIP, everybody in UKIP knows what UKIP is, so extremism is the majority, and she expects not to be tarnished by that, even though she was one of their leaders. The hypocrisy is unbelievable. Anyway. The marches have been calling for a ceasefire. I know because I've been there. The majority of the UK supports a ceasefire because most people find the idea that our government is supporting the Israeli government while they commit ethnic cleansing against 2 million people utterly disgusting. Now the nature of that ceasefire, whether it just covers bombs so they can still go after Hamas on foot, that's a different debate. But right now we are seeing thousands and thousands of innocent people being killed by indiscriminate bombing. That has to stop. I'm Femi, this has been F Politics. Have a great week.